Okay, so we're going to turn on to Chris. I see his camera is on, and I like your camouflage shirts, ready to go.
Let me just not make a rookie mistake and unmute there first. Good morning, everybody. You saw me a little bit earlier with Arnu. Arnu and I are good, very good, let's say, colleagues in the professional field of reptiles in South Africa. Arnu is a very well-respected reptile guy, and he actually saved my life in 2012. I was bitten by Jameson's mamba. I don't know if a lot of people out there know that we have 4 species of of mamba in Africa. We have the green and the black mamba, and we have the Jameson's mamba and the western green mamba. And being a snake person, in 2012, I brought the Jameson's mambas in as a display and made a mistake, got bitten, and the first port of call was Arnu, and he managed to give advice good enough that I can sit here and do a presentation for you all here today.
I'm going to introduce you to our audience. Chris is a conservationist specializing in wildlife management and reptile rescue with a BTech in nature conservation and a master's in progress at Northwest University. He has rescued thousands of reptiles and directs low-fault venom suppliers. Formerly curator of Swedini Reptile Park and a senior nature conservator at Mpumalanga Tourism and Parks, he also manages mass wildlife capture, translocation, and problem animal control.
There we go. That's how easy it is to manage crocodiles. Slide number 1. Okay, so as far as crocodile management is concerned, I've been asked to talk about how do we manage these crocodiles, and more from a veterinary perspective. And then Arnu and I sort of flicked a coin and decided who's going to focus on lizards as well, So the crocodiles and lizards side of veterinary care and just general management is what I'll be covering now for the next, not 40 minutes anymore, 30 minutes, but I'll go, I'm sure I'll make it. Okay, so as far as crocodile management concerned, in what I've been involved in the last 22 years in Mpumalanga, this is our little green zone of our province. This is where we operate. You can see on our eastern border there, that white area is the Kruger National Park. Many years ago, probably 40 odd years ago, the crocodile and hippo numbers in the rivers, the big rivers that feed into the Kruger National Park, the Crocodile River and the Sabi River, the animals like hippo and crocs were always managed in the old days. And I'm sure you all would appreciate how in the old days these guys would manage these creatures, and that would basically just be culling. All right, they would keep the numbers down and at a controlled level. These days, unfortunately, or fortunately, depends which side of the fence you sit, the culling has been stopped and the numbers of these problem animals have exploded. All right, so what I'm not going to talk too much about the crocodile farming industry. All I will say about crocodile farming at this stage in South Africa is for the last 3 to 5 years, the crocodile farm industry has crashed completely. It used to be quite a lucrative business for the belly skins of crocodiles. It was very popular at one stage for the skin market. And a lot of people thought that they would be able to benefit quite largely. I mean, some of these crocodile farms have got up to 10,000 crocodiles, And when that market crashed, and I think one of the major reasons why the market had such a crash was an oversupply, number one, and of poor grade skins. The idea would be then to produce and sell what they call an A grade skin, which means that the belly of that crocodile does not have a mark, a scratch, any blemish, absolutely nothing. Those are A grade skins, and those are the ones that get sold to the Gucci's and the handbag and boot industry. When that became an exclusivity in the last couple of years, crocodile farms stagnated. What do you do when your whole life you've been crocodile farming and now there's nowhere to go with these crocodiles anymore? So this is an absolutely huge industry impact. And it went so far down as our natural population. So what the guys would do is there's no funding for keeping the crocodiles fed, for maintenance on the facilities, on the dams and the fences that are surrounding the dams, and these crocodiles would break out. So this is a huge issue we've had recently, the last couple of years in our province, in Mpumalanga, of crocodiles breaking out of crocodile breeding facilities. And we're talking about like 200 to 500 crocodiles at a time. And animals that are probably between 2.5 and 3.5 meters. So we have this absolute influx of crocodiles in the river systems. Added to that is the pressure buildup from the Kruger National Park side of crocodiles breeding well and pushing crocodiles up the river systems, sort of from east to west, from Mpumalanga to Cape Town. And they literally are everywhere. So we have every season, crocodile capture and working with crocodiles is a seasonal event. And this, as most of you will know, is because of crocodiles being reptiles. They are ectotherms. So they have their most active periods during our summer months, which would be from like October, November-ish till about now, April, May. We are catching from between 50 to 80 problem crocodiles every season. So we have a relief facility where we have 3 dams where we keep our problem animals, our problem children, a small, medium, and large dam facility where we catch and remove crocodiles out of public dams, farmers' dams, wherever there is any sort of chance or already an event of human-animal conflict situation. Then we go and manage that by, as you can see there, most of the time setting cages. We do have a new method these days, which is catching them with fishing poles, fishing rods with 3-angle hooks. It's quite an exciting process, but it works really well. So yeah, that's pretty much how we manage the crocodiles at this stage. So there's 2 ways we can do this. And I heard at the Croc Farm in Cape Town, there was an option of approaching the crocodile from the back and sort of jumping on it and holding its mouth closed. And if I had to have a look at that fatty that was lying there in the pond at that croc farm, even myself, I would be reluctant to jump onto the back of that monster. So there is the option, obviously, of physical restraint. That was my son a couple of years ago, where we caught the crocodile. That's a 4.2 meter Nile crocodile caught in the Komati River. He had eaten 3 Great Danes, and there were only 2 left of the farm. And he was like, okay, guys, it is the river. It is a natural system, but please come help me out. So we removed that problem crocodile from the area. And so physical restraint would be, and in our experience, the best way to do it, whether they are in a cage or not, is to try and get a top jaw rope on it. Now we are talking, I'm sure some of you might remember the good old Steve Irwin from Australia, the crocodile hunter. This guy really put a lot of reptiles on the planet for all of us. What you do is literally rope the crocodile. You don't want to go top and bottom jaw, because as soon as you put the rope on, it's going to slide off. Okay, there's no real attachment point. There is a bit of a bud or a bead at the end of the nose, the nostril section, where there's the nostrils, then there's a little dip before the rest of the jawline starts. And if your rope can be in there, if you've got both top and bottom jaw caught, you're just really lucky. Okay, it's really not a advisable position to have yourself in when you're trying to pull that size crocodile out of the water or out of a cage. So top jaw rope. The theory there is to get the rope behind the teeth, all right? Let that rope get really tight, pull the crocodile into a manageable area, throw a blindfold over its eyes. This is the only time I will ever try and physically restrain a crocodile, is blindfold it first. And this is going to take a few goes, because as soon as that towel or stretcher or whatever you're using, your shirt, goes over the eyes of the crocodile, they strike out and snap at anything that's coming towards them. So you'll have to do it 2 or 3 or 4 times for them to actually, for that blindfold to actually sit nicely. And then you do, as she was saying, approach from the behind, from the back, and you literally have to commit. Like, there is no level of like semi-commitment when you're doing something like this. You dive with your hands over the eyes, you put your full body weight on the crocodile, and you have 300 people behind you to sit on the crocodile as well to prevent it rolling and thrashing around and whatever. So it is not an advisable method to use unless you're really experienced. And we normally do it on the smaller crocs, okay, not something that size. The other option would be the injectables. Now, in the old days, way back, we had a drug which is very similar to the one that we're using these days called Flexidil. I don't know if some of you are familiar with the Flexidil family. These days, we have this drug called Gelamine. It's a 40 milligram per ml solution, and we inject it into the crocodile using a pole syringe, all right? And what's nice about using the cages is we can then choose which site we'd like to inject the crocodile. Normally at base of the tail. Now, I know Arnu was saying that an ideal area of injection site, and we'll get there later in the lizard slides, would be the first cranial third of the animal, and that's perfect. You'd have your best results there. But when you're doing something like a Gelamine like this, like, okay, it's not an anesthesia, it's a paralytic. So you're not putting the crocodile to sleep, you're just making him not move around as much. Okay, you're paralyzing the muscles. So that crocodile at every point of what you are doing knows exactly what you're doing, can see, smell, he just cannot react to you while you approach him once the Gelamine is in. So any site on the body really that he gives you at that stage, look where that cage is situated. It's in the bulrushes in the middle of nowhere. It's a dangerous situation. So anywhere where you can get him with a syringe is ideal. And the Gelamine, because, it's working on a ectothermic animal, so it takes a lot longer to take desired effect. So you're looking at about a 25 to 40 minute downtime on some of these crocodiles. There is I don't know why it came out sideways, but anyway, there's a picture of the recommended dosages to length of crocodile. In my experience, you can half that, okay? Unless you are doing some sort of major procedures on the crocodiles, if you're just needing to get that crocodile out of a cage or out of the river, load it and go relocate it, I would half those doses, definitely, all right? The Gelamine is really, really powerful as a paralytic. And the problem with the Gelamine, there's no antidote, there's no reversal. So that animal has to literally sit it out, okay? You'll have to get them in a warm area where they can metabolize the Gelamine out as fast as possible. And it takes them a good, 3 to 6 hours in full sun for them to sort of get to a point where they are relaxed and can feel comfortable again. So if you're going on that dosage over there on that table, and I'm sure we'll be able to share these, the table like this later on, you're going to have a sleeping crocodile for a day or even up to 2 days. All right. So a lot of ropes, a lot of strength, a lot of commitment, and a lot of experience. This is how you manage these big crocodiles. I'd like you guys to now just picture yourselves in a captive environment like we saw earlier, and you have this massive 3 to 4 meter crocodile, and you need to manage that animal. Let's say he's having a bad day and you see he's there's some sort of condition that you need to take care of, to manhandle, and you'll see in the conclusions as well, there's a ratio of how many times are you going to fight this crocodile to get it into a position where you can actually do something to help it. You might just be sending it further down its death row. All right. So managing these animals at this size is extremely difficult. And you cannot use these injectables day after day, or, like every week, once a week checkups, So as far as the crocodiles are concerned and the management of conditions of these crocodiles, it's really, really difficult. And I think we are really lucky that the crocs do not show a lot of issues. They don't have a lot of conditions. I did mention in the notes there about the crococillin. This is a very specific blood penicillin-based molecule that crocodiles have free-flowing through their system naturally. And this is a real help to them. And this is, I know it was mentioned, but exactly why they can survive something like amputations and things like that without any negative effect, without any major necrosis. So why would you need to put these crocodiles under anesthesia or paresthesia? Some of the crocs that we manage, when we release them, we tag them as well. So this is a satellite tag. We tagged 18 crocodiles. We released them at Loskop Dam Nature Reserve and Blyde River or Swadini Nature Reserve, just to see what is the success of release. Like, are we doing a good thing here? We catch it in one place, house them for a while, and then release them in another place. And obviously we need to get them under some sort of anesthesia or paresthesia while we do this. If you're using an injectable like Gelamine, you have to use a topical or site painkiller, something like lignocaine or something like that, before you start to do any incisions or drilling on scutes or something like that. Because even though it is a paralytic, they can still feel. All right. So you'd have to use that as an addition to any or sort of other things that you want to do, especially incisions or biopsies or something like that. Okay, so I jumped the gun, and then here's some escapees. Look at the date there. That's this year, 27th of February. We had a double up at quite early hours of the morning, of the evening there, of the morning, sorry. Yeah. We were called out to just down the road here, just outside of Nelspruit, with these two fatties walking down the main road, between Nelspruit and Barberton. And there is a crocodile farm there. And obviously, they were both females. They were both pretty similar sized creatures. And so it was pretty obvious they were escapees from there. And we might get some questions in the question session about, okay, well, do they go back to the crocodile farm? We say no. They do not. We do not give them back. We keep them ourselves. It is then classified as what we call a res nullius animal, which means it belongs to the province. It belongs to nobody. Like if a hippopotamus or a lion or an elephant comes out of Kruger National Park or is found in our province, it is called a res nullius animal. So it belongs to the province. Everybody in the province owns this animal, but the Parks Board and Mpumalanga Tourism and Parks Agency, who I work for, are the custodians or have been given the permission as a conservation organization to look after and care for those animals. That's why we confiscate them and take them and then manage where we would release them and stuff like that. Okay, some of the conditions. There you have old high five over there. I think that's a picture of a saltwater crocodile from Australia. But anyway, look at his little stumps there. And that just goes to, what we were talking about. These animals are extremely resilient. Now, I'm sure most of you on the panel know that if when a crocodile gets a big enough fright, then they drop their tails like a gecko. Did you know that? No? Nobody's ever seen it, because a crocodile never gets that nervous, never gets that scared. Waking up the people here. Okay, I'll be here all day, ne? A little bit of a joke, all right? Bear with me here. Stay with me, people. Stay with me. Okay, so some of the conditions. They do not lose their tails. I was just kidding. That's not something that is at all happening. All right. So amputations, broken bones. Some of the smaller animals, when you try and catch them, they really thrash around. I mean, they are all over the show. They're actually horrible animals to work with. They are extremely powerful. They can hurt themselves quite badly. In some of these crocodile facilities, we see a condition called scale rot. This is dams and facilities that don't get properly cleaned often enough. And then physical trauma issues. You know, we have quite a few crocodiles crossing roads here in our province that get hit by vehicles, and then who knows what's going on internally. You know, so those are the major conditions. We have sort of mentioned antibiotics. I think so, on some of the smaller crocodiles that are in a captive environment might need antibiotics to sort of assist in major wounds, all right, major conditions. But generally, outside in the open area, you would not administer any type of antibiotic. They will be able to handle it themselves. The only key aspect here when you are treating any sort of reptile, number one, but specifically crocodiles, is being a reptile, they need to be able to metabolize whatever you are giving that creature, even itself. If you're not giving any medications and that crocodile is unhappy with whatever condition, you have to keep the temperatures high constantly for that animal to have any successful outcome, especially when you're doing injectables. And like I said, mentioned earlier, especially when you are trying to let that animal work out some of the injectables that you have given, like the gelamine or something like that. All right. So this is a lot of people miss this. And sometimes it's really difficult to make sure that that crocodile can get to high ambient temperatures constantly. And we had a case, and I think this is where Kirsten got my number from. I'm not too sure. Like I was trying to work out yesterday how I got connected, but I do appreciate being here. But I did help out. I think it was Port Elizabeth Technicon or Port Elizabeth something zoo at one stage. I don't know. And the idea was then to bring that crocodile. It was more beneficial to bring the crocodile out of the dam and box it in a wood box facility with 3 or 4 red downlights for a couple of days. So remove it from the water completely. Get that animal in a secluded quarantine facility, if you will, that's got a high temperature. And we managed to turn that crocodile around in like less than a week. All right. And send him back out. So rather do that than try and manage a crocodile in a big facility that really needs some special attention. So, Joe, just keep that in mind. Right, let's move on. I think the questions will come later, Kirsten, with regards to crocodile and management and
Yes,
stuff like
that's
that.
right,
All right.
Chris.
So,
Yeah, keep going.
okay, lizard management. And you'll see now as we go through the slides, there's so much more information when you come to lizards. Exotic and local lizards when it compared to crocodiles because of the issues that are related to, as I said, crocs, very few issues. Hey, they're really tough. And then we get to these lizards. Okay, what I'm holding there, that's was my younger days. Ne? I'm holding a really big fat rock monitor lizard, quite a common lizard species in South Africa. So some of the more commonly encountered conditions. Trauma, we've mentioned the trauma, lots of trauma, car accidents, dog bites, that sort of thing. Inappropriate housing is a big one. Now, I'm going to sort of lean more towards the captive environment, vets being questioned in veterinary practices now, how we're going to manage these creatures that come into your veterinary practice and how we treat those. But we'll fly through this. So inappropriate housing, some of these nervous lizards are forced into wire caged aviaries and then they push their faces constantly. They test every single little hole on that wire cage to see if one will give that they can get out. And that can sometimes abrase the nose quite horrifically, all right? Even the crocodiles in the cages that we catch, they usually get, they usually go into those cages at night, and we get there the next morning. So they've been in that cage for a good couple of hours, and they've pushed every corner of that cage, and they've totally removed the skin off the nose of the crocodile. In that case, we just leave them. We literally leave them. We don't even put on a topical uh, purple footer spray or something like that. You just leave them. A week later, it's completely cleared up. All right. In the case of these little lizards, sensitive lizards, you really need to have some sort of intervention. Definitely remove it from that housing, and maybe add, I've used literally band-aids in some cases on lizards that are quite weak, just to keep it closed with some topical treatment on that. The most common one that we see in most of the lizards, especially in the pet populations, is obviously metabolic bone disease. This originates from very poor, two things: extremely poor nutrition as a youngster, and no correct lighting requirements. Obviously, the best lighting requirement that these lizards need to use to grow would be the sunlight, UVB, UVA. It's got everything in it for proper bone development as a juvenile. Some people buy these animals from pet shops, put them in-house, closed room with a normal daylight. All right. And you get what we call the stunted growth, metabolic bone disease kicking in. And these are the conditions that we used to see quite extremely about 10 years ago. I'd say 6 out of 10 bearded dragons and green iguanas that we saw as pets had advanced metabolic bone disease. So this was a big issue. So we were on a big fight in our province to send out information pamphlets, and we forced all the pet shops to issue, when they sell the dragon or the iguana to a client, when they get their slip, they get a piece of paper. It's like a one paragraph to say, this is what it needs to eat, and this is the lighting requirements that it needs. All right. And that has really done magic. Okay. So from then till now, I can't even remember last when I saw something like metabolic bone disease in the pet populations of lizards here where I come from. Arunu might be able to comment on that a little bit later up in Joburg. I mean, there's a lot more going on there in the pet trade than here. Okay. Rubber jaw syndromes, pathological fractures, dystocia. Now, dystocia is the keeping back or holding of eggs, or eggs that are not passed through. I've seen it in snakes. I've seen it in lizards. When these animals, it could be due to dehydration, poor nutrition. I've seen it in unhappy lizards. Lizards that are not happy in their environment will hold the eggs back for longer than what they need to, because they do not have an ideal place to lay the eggs. So they'll keep it back, hoping for this place that never comes, and then they get egg bound. So you might have to do a bit of surgery on that to get those out. We did mention a bit of dehydration, disectisis, on these tropical lizards. Always, high humidity, lots of water. Otherwise, they will have quite serious dehydration problems. And then this is a big one: impaction from substrate. I heard the girls this morning earlier saying they remove the corn snakes and they feed them in a separate container, and then they put them back. I love that. This is the way things should be done, especially with these little lizards. Any lizard should be able to be removed, be fed in a container or an environment where there's nothing that can go down their gullets with the cricket or the mealworm or the mouse or something like that they're eating, because you could have this build-up of substrate, whether it be those little rocks or bark chip or whatever, and you get this impaction, and then the animal gets sick, and literally it either causes death, or it causes you have to go to the vet and remove that surgically. Handling of the lizards, a little bit easier than the crocs, I must say, but tricky. A lot of them are very squirmish. They can dislocate their own vertebra while trying to squeam and squirm in your hand. A lot of them are surprisingly fast. Okay, so just remember that. There is autotomy, which means the dropping of the tail. Obviously, as we know in the geckos, that's number one. But something like, and I know a lot of people don't know this, the green iguanas. The green iguana, if he's running, the most tempting place to grab them is the tail, and you can pull that tail off. Okay, so they do it as well, so watch out for that. And what makes them tricky, and we mentioned we don't really have venomous lizards in South Africa. We do have other options. Overseas, Mexico, we have the Gila monsters and the Mexican beaded lizards, which have a seriously potent venom associated to them. You will be hospitalized. But the issue with these lizards generally is every end is a sharp end. So they can bite, they can scratch, they tail whip. So it's a real tricky thing to work with. Once you've got them, they like to barrel roll to try and get out of your hands. And then I see I got a spelling mistake there. One hammed behind the head and one over the back hips or the base of the tail. So you want to sort of isolate them in two parts of the body so they can not necessarily barrel roll, but you have them stable like that, and keep the claws and things hanging down, all right, in front. Another ideal way to do this is to literally wrap them in a towel. Really easy, really manageable, especially if you need to do some tube feeding or something like that. Wrap them up in a towel so they can't squirm, they can't scratch you, they can't tail whip, so you can really get them isolated like that for any sort of work that you need to do on them. I put this slide here on purpose. I know we only got like 4 minutes left here, because when you're working with the crocodiles or these lizards or something like this, all this type of equipment you see here and the stuff that Arnu showed you earlier is not ideal. Unfortunately, you will have to go in with these two and hope for the best. Okay, so a little bit of experience in this, watching some guys do it first. Have a towel with you, throw the towel over them, let them get caught up. That split second of them getting caught up in the towel will give you time to sort of restrain them. But a lot of the time, the rest of this normal snake equipment doesn't work. They're just too strong for them. Clinical exam. Let's quickly go through this. Why would a body temperature measurement be useless? Because they're ectotherms. So they will follow the temperature of the environment. If it's a hot day, you've got a hot lizard. Okay. Right. As far as the further examinations go, we have these beautiful charts, downloadable charts anywhere on the internet on body condition score, body tone and condition scoring. A lot of these lizards, remember, as I don't know, I think said, he did mention it, in the base of the tail is where they store their fat reserves. And look at this poor green iguana. You do not need to be a vet or an expert to see this guy's in big trouble. Abdominal palpation, we can use the integument, we can do an oral exam, we can do fecal cultures. The slide there is a Salmonella and E. coli culture that we grew for animals we were sending overseas. Let's go to injection sites. I'm glad Arnu has mentioned it before. The first cranial third, because of that renal portal system, is going to work out any. And I mean, you've done all the hard work, guys. You've weighed the animal, you've got the right injectables, you inject them in the back half of the animal, and your whole dose is skewed because half of it's already been worked out before it can get to the area where it needs to take action. So remember that, it's very important. First cranial third, and on the lizards, you can have a look at that poor little dragon there. He gets it somewhere in the bicep. So pectoral muscles, bicep, upper arms, those are the go-to injectable sites. Next is going to be the blood collection sites. So we've got two go-tos there, and I think the most on the lizards, the most preferred, and on crocodiles, is the ventral tail vein. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see there is the abdominal, also semi-ventral abdominal vein. Those are usually pretty chunky in the monitor lizards and the green iguanas. Those are quite nice. The bigger the animal gets, the easier it is to hit that vein. All right. Tube feeding. most of our lizards and crocodiles have got quite a bite force down. So what you want to do is get something that the animal can bite into, all right? So you create normally like a tube, a plastic tube, let them bite into that. Sometimes we even tape their mouth closed onto that tube, and then you can feed a tube down into its stomach. The only thing you have to watch out for is obviously not getting it into the lungs, all right? And then the tube feeding can be done like that. So remember, that's quite a nice little trick. Let them bite into a plastic tube, tape that up, send the tube through that. Otherwise, they're going to keep on biting your actual tube that you want to use. I already did touch on this, male and female. It is the same in lizards as it is in snakes. The base of the tail holds the hemipenes. In the males, they've got two. In the females, there's nothing inside the base of the tail that's of any worth. Anesthesia in these lizards, we have isoflurane gas would be most of the time the go-to option for any type of anesthesia. We do have an injectable. It is called alfaxone. We've used this on numerous occasions, in my facility as well as others in the province here. And we have really, really good results. All right, the alfaxone, 15 to 20 milligrams per kilogram, injectable. And again, the animal can just work that out itself. On the recovery part side of the alfaxone, once you've done whatever work you're doing with the animal, you can even use 2-liter Coke bottles with warm water in, wrapped in small little towels, and pack that around whichever lizard you've been working on, in the wake-up crate or in the sky crate or whatever you're doing, to help speed up that metabolism process to work out the alfaxone. As far as the husbandry is concerned, it has been covered quite a bit. I'll be sort of concluding now. One or two more slides. You have these preferred optimal temperature zones, and this chart here really indicates what we're looking at here. And if you look at, let's go down to the tropical lizards, the green iguanas, and a lot of people miss this in the pet trade. Check their hibernation or brumation, if you will. Never. Okay, these animals stay constant, 26 to 31 degrees Celsius or 34, their whole life long. They bask from the top down, ambient temperatures. And I think, especially in our context in Africa, South Africa specifically, people miss this. They want to hibernate these lizards in winter. And then when the lizards come out of that hibernation, they then have all these type of conditions. All right, pneumonia, stomatitis, all sorts of things. Look at the desert lizards like the bearded dragons. They brumate 26 to 36, and they like to have more of a belly up, like a hot rock where they can get some belly up warmth, to have their sort of ambient control of metabolism during a day. If you can just do those small little changes for those for those specific respective species, you'll have happy animals in captivity. So what's really important, your temperatures, humidity and ventilation. We spoke about, I heard Arden talking about the ventilation on some of those cages, really good. Lighting requirements, absolutely essential. They've made it so easy these days. You can go to the pet shop, there's a green iguana on the light bulb. There's a bearded dragon on the light bulb box. So you can't make a mistake. You just go, you buy that one and you stick it in and you have a happy lizard. All right. Cage design, really important. As we mentioned, have things that they can climb on. Don't just have green iguanas lying on newspaper. All right. Social grouping has been mentioned, especially some of these lizards, the males and the males, they are extremely dominant and territorial. They will hurt each other quite badly. And then for me, one of the most important parts of not getting animals to the vet is your food supply. The quality of the food you feed your animal or your lizard is the quality of the condition of the animal on the other side. I can't stress this more. Huh? This is so, so, so important. And then if you're in a facility that has more than one of these things together, your biosecurity really needs to be up to scratch. So cleanliness, working with quarantine animals last at the end of the day, so you don't spread that through the facility. Yeah, there's another whole day we can talk about biosecurity. So in crocodiles, it's really uncommon to have any sort of major conditions related to them. And then I just wanted to make that point of a hands-off approach when you come to the crocodile specifically. In my experience over all these years, a look from the outside in, hands-off approach normally works better than to try and continuously restrain and stress that animal to do what you think is the best. Okay, and that would probably be the take-home message with the crocodiles in holding facilities at this stage. All right, I'm done, I think, for now. Sorry, I think I went over time.
You were perfect, Chris. Absolutely perfect. We've actually got the students for an extra 10 minutes, so all is good. Kagiso Rafela, he asks, Chris, have you ever come across a crocodile with pansteatitis? And how did you manage such a situation? Oh dear, I'm actually a biologist, but yeah, that one got me. And how did you manage such a situation?
We had a huge pansteatitis outbreak in where the Sabi River comes into Kruger National Park up north. And it decimated a huge population of crocodiles there. It actually, as bad as it sounds, it actually did us a favor to bring the crocodile numbers down there. But and at this stage, we have no treatment protocol that's successful against pansteatitis. If they get it, and they do succumb from it. Yeah. So unfortunately, at this stage, we know about it. I've never, in our facilities, in our captures, in our experience hands-on the last 22 years, I've never worked with pansteatitis, but I have had colleagues that have obviously published some stuff. Unfortunately, if they get it, there's no way you can treat it. They will succumb from it. Yeah.
Okay, it was a very good question. And then from Mike Matale, do you have a vaccination protocol for crocodile pox virus and West Nile virus?
Okay. No, we do not. We've never had it. We haven't been exposed to it here. And I think the reason for that is because 90% of the animals we're working with come from a clean natural environment. Okay. I know a lot of these viruses become quite horrible and contagious and run through crocodile breeding facilities, and that they have had especially the crocodile pox. Myself personally, I wouldn't want to sort of comment on that because I have we've never needed to even think about a protocol for that, in my experience from my side. Yeah.
Okay. So here's another one. I'm going to try out my pronunciation on this one. Is Aeromonas hydrophilia common in crocodiles?
What is Aeromonas hydrophilia?
Let's ask Mike Matale to tell everybody. Mike, are you there?
It's a bacterial infection that can cause sepsemia, meningitis, and pneumonia in crocodiles.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
I've never had experience with it. I know definitely it's a gram-negative type of bacteria, and I'm not sure how common it is though. I don't know. You put your video on. Is there something you want to say about that? Have you ever had experience with this bacteria in crocodile populations? I haven't.
I don't have any specific times that we've worked with animals like that, but what I have noticed, especially with crocodilians, is if they do get a bacterial infection of some sort, whether a negative or gram-positive, if you just increase their body temperature to a constant 33 degrees for at least a period of 3 to 4 weeks, their natural immunity takes over and they manage to beat that. So just by upping their temperature, like we would get a fever when we have some bacterial infection or viral infection where we start getting hot and our temperature goes up to 40 degrees. The same thing with the reptiles. They normally are used to it being at about 28 to 30 degrees. So the bacteria are primed for working at that temperature. So you take them up to 33 degrees, that bacteria can't survive at 33. And that usually just kicks in their natural immunity, and after a period of a couple of weeks, they're gone. I've seen it in other reptiles, and that's what we generally do, is just up the temperature, and so far it's worked for me.
So, Arno and Chris, I have a feeling that Mike and some of his fellow students might become colleagues of yours one day, because they sound very knowledgeable and obviously very passionate. So, yeah, thank you to the students, the fifth year veterinary students at Luana in Malawi, in Lilongwe. And I know that you guys are going to have to head off very soon. I'm just trying to see if I think I've got all my questions answered, but Arno and Chris, is there anything that you would like to add as a last thought, or anything that you've forgotten?
Okay, can I go first and Chris can finish off? He'll probably finish
Sure.
it off with a joke in any case. But yeah, the field of herpetology, the field of reptile diseases is very, very early. We basically at the toddler stage, we don't know too much about it. And because it's one of those animals which are not one of the megafauna, or the ones that you put on posters when you're trying to get people to donate money, less attention is spent on them, where within a couple of years, I'm hoping that we'll pick up more and more experience, and that we'll have vets that are specialized in being able to treat reptiles, because it needs to be done. We've got a disease outbreak in America at the moment called snake fungal disease. It causes a fungus which is not treatable, and as a result, the rattlesnake population is busy decreasing at an alarming rate, including the very protected ones. There's pentastomes, which is a little worm-like thing that goes underneath their tongue, also called a tongue worm. In Burmese pythons, it's not a problem. So the Burmese pythons that escaped years ago carried this disease back into the Everglades. And because this disease, when it gets into something small like a pygmy rattlesnake, is too big for them to be able to survive that, they end up with their lung getting blocked, and they're dying from that. So we've got to be able to work with all these things, whether it's in the wild or in captivity. So it's not just the captive populations, the wild populations will also need our help in future. So I'm hoping some of the people that we have here today will decide to dedicate just a little bit of their day to treating reptiles.
Chris, before you carry on, I'm just going to ask Mike again to ask his question. Mike, go ahead.
All right. I just want to know if there are some mites and ticks affecting the crocodiles, and how do you treat them?
Nope, I've never in my life seen mites or ticks on crocodiles. I think because of their behavior, sleeping in water. All right, 80% of their time is spent submerged underwater. Almost never. I don't think. No, I've never seen a tick on a crocodile, unless the crocodile has now escaped a crocodile breeding facility and has been walking through the field for 2 to 3 weeks trying to find another water source. He might pick up a tick or two there for sure, but no. But in the lizards, yes, definitely. I know your question is around crocodiles, so no. But in lizards, for sure. Almost every single wild caught monitor lizard that we get normally has some sort of tick in its nostril or in its ear or under its arm, all the little soft spaces. There at the cloaca, base of the cloaca, full of ticks. Yeah, they are. They've got quite an array and variety of external parasites when you do catch them. Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Chris, I'm going to head on to you for a sort of a final wrap up.
Cool. Closing comments. I like what Arnu said, and I'd like to jump onto that. It's definitely becoming more popular. Reptiles are being seen as more acceptable. They're being seen as a cool pet. And so my take-home message would be biosecurity, biosecurity, biosecurity. Whether you are in a facility that has captive reptiles privately or publicly, and even any field work that you do, it is so essential to stick to good management practices around biosecurity. it's like COVID outbreak. All right. It's about being responsible when working around these animals and their diseases. I that's the only big sort of red light that comes on when I see future in reptiles is we don't know a lot about what's going on. They're coming up with these weird, like I mean, on the eastern coast of Australia, they've now got the sunshine virus in reptiles. It's really a problem, and these things are popping up all over the show. So just be vigilant and do diligence when you're working with these things, but get excited about them. I think the the panel that we have here today, the group of students that we have here today, are not just sitting here because they are forced to be there. I think there is some sort of seed that we can plant for them to get excited about having a little bit deeper insight, a little bit of deeper knowledge in this subject. And you'll go a long way. There's a lot to learn now, even for myself and Arnu. Maybe not Arnu, he knows everything.
I think you both know everything. It's absolutely incredible. So, yes, I see there is one more. I'm going to take one more question from Mike. Mike, you're an abundance of questions as well. So here we go. How do you handle nutritional deficiencies in reptiles? Either
I
of
can
you.
grab that one.
Okay, Arno.
Just feed them the proper diet. It does happen quite often. It will be as a result of them not being able to absorb calcium because they're not exposed to UVB. That includes all the lizards as well as the tortoises. With the snakes, it's not as bad, but if you keep them on, or they've been, for example, have fallen down into a well and haven't had food for a while, you need to just feed them slowly the exact diet that they require, and they'll recover perfectly from that. If they have, however, picked up kidney damage or something in the meantime, then obviously you are going to have a problem. But usually we don't see deficiencies if the food prey item that they're being fed is of a high quality. It doesn't help that you go and feed them mice that have just been raised on dog food and they don't have all the calcium and vitamins that they require, and they didn't have a choice to have anything else. Most of the snakes that are coming into a veterinary practice from the wild, they shouldn't have any dietary problems because they've been exposed to being able to eat lizards and frogs and birds and mice and rats and everything else that they do find in the wild. So we don't see it that often, but we do see it with captive animals. And it's usually as a result of the snake not feeding or regurgitating for a number of reasons, and not being kept warm enough so it can actually digest its food, or being kept too hot that it undergoes stress and actually uses up all its fat reserves.
I think can I just add on to that? Mike is also,
Yes, Chris.
Arnu did say it, build them up slowly. I had a emaciated, anemic rock monitor lizard, looked really bad, came in, and I offered it food. It absolutely overgorged itself and was dead the next day. It had just had a complete organ shut down. All right. So it's a slow process of building that strength back up. Yeah.
Thanks, Chris. There's a little thank you in the chats from Simone Karlowski saying a great and detailed presentations. Thanks so much for your work and time. And I would like to reiterate that it's been an amazing morning. I see there is one more question, and I think this is the last question we're going to take. Lots of enthusiasm here. So Bridget Minyalira raised her hand. That's our teacher. Bridget, have you got a student?
Yes, so one of the students would like to just say thank you on behalf of the whole class. So Upendo Chulu. Upendo.
Hi, I'd just like to say thank you for the wonderful presentation. It was really great having some of the video. Also, just show that you don't need to be afraid. So it was really fun, and yeah, just thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Lovely. Maurette, my colleague, is clapping. Okay, so before everybody heads off, I'm just going to go back to my original learning outcomes, just to repeat what we hopefully have learned today. So let me just get onto that. So these were very general. What we hoped to learn was about safe handling and restraint techniques, optimal husbandry techniques, practices, reptile health and disease management, and captive breeding and conservation. I have to say that I think we've learned all of that and much more. So thank you very much, everybody. Thanks, Arno and Chris, and any other of our speakers in the audience still. And yeah, thank you so much for everybody for joining. We'll be back next week with a session all about carnivores and following pretty much the same outline as we have with the reptiles. So thank you very, very much all. See you next Friday.